Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Ezekiel chapter 28, starting in verse 11, we have a lament that was mentioned over or spoken over the King of Tyre. And there's several things that are described about the King of Tyre that are things that we typically think of as good things that the people of the world often chase after. And these things are beauty, wisdom, wealth, and position. Those are things that people in this world oftentimes think are the best things that a person can acquire. And this King of Tyre had all four of those things. It talks about there in the lament that he had the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. And then it goes on to talk about the precious stones that were his covering, the ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and it goes on. And then it talks about his position. It says, "You are on the holy mountain of God." And so here we have an individual who had it all, everything that the world aspires after. Again, beauty, wisdom, wealth, and position. And what this shows us is that, yes, these things are good in and of themselves. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being beautiful. There's nothing wrong with being wise. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. And there's nothing wrong with acquiring a high position. But what this text also shows us is that there's an inherent danger with those things as well, because these very things that he had that were a positive thing, that most people would consider a positive thing, were actually the things that brought him to his ruin. It says that he talks about how by the abundance of your trade you were internally filled with violence and you sinned. Therefore I've cast you as profane from the mountain of God. Because of his wealth, he began to deal in a very bad way with his trade. He was not honest with his trade, and his wealth led him to do things that were not trustworthy and were not true. And then also it talks about the pride that came with his beauty in verse 17. Your heart was lofty because of your beauty. And oftentimes people do become prideful when they're very beautiful, and people look up to how good looking they are. It can lead to pride oftentimes. And it talks about how his wisdom was corrupted. Also in verse 17, he says, you corrupted your wisdom by reason of your splendor. And so the wisdom that he had actually became corrupted because of his splendor. He had began to look at things in the wrong way. And his wisdom was misplaced. And because of his splendor, it was tainting the wisdom that he had and was leading him to have a twisted wisdom, we might call it. And so in all these different things, these are things that cause him to really fall away from his position and put him in a bad light before God, and ultimately would be destroyed. And so these are things that we have to be careful about, that we don't put too much weight on these things. Advertisements, social media, movies, TV would tell us that these are things we should chase after. But the scriptures tell us that there is something that there's a warning tied to each of these things, and we should be careful how we approach these things. The ultimate thing we should be seeking after is a godly life, living rightly before God, treating other people with love, being humble before God. Those are the things that are truly valuable. If we acquire beauty and wisdom and wealth and position, that's fine. But ultimately, we should be seeking the heavenly things and seeking the things of the kingdom of God. And that is where our perspective should be. So hopefully our reading today will help us to recalibrate our minds. If we've been kind of drifting off into the world's perspective and the world's priorities, today's reading perhaps can cause us to turn back again and to realize what truly matters. What truly matters is pleasing the Lord, walking before him with a humble heart, and pleasing him all the time. So here's some things we can reflect on and think about as we do a reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.